Dumela abuti.
Liga, big boss.
Nteng le kae ntate?
Breathing in and out.
Oh, awesome.
Breathing in and out.
When I was told I'm going to be chatting to you, I said, wow, you are one person who is very humble and you're not a motoratang spotlight.
Yeah, sure.
So tell me more about you. I mean, home, family background.
Born Kotladi, that's in Deep Soweto. Boring life, nothing exciting.
Yeah, that's the before picture.
That's just, born Kladi, that's where I'm from, and that's where my roots are, that's where my mom is, that's where my little brother is, that's where my family is. And yeah, I think to remain private is by design.
Yeah.
It's by design.
It takes a man of wisdom to get to that point where it's really not about the spotlight, as long as you do your thing. And but I want to know more about how you grew up first, because
Yeah.
I'm interested in what were those influences, things that influenced your life to be what you are today.
I think it's coming from a curious background, number one, because a lot of the things I do now, I always say to people, I've been doing them from day one, so nothing has changed. From whether spray painting at the age of like 12, 11, and I got it even to this hip hop thing at a very early age when I was like in standard one. I don't know what grade that's called, but in standard one.
I laugh because some people, when you say standard one, they can't relate.
Yeah, they'll figure it out. They'll have to Google what standard one is.
The standard one is sub A.
See, you also don't know. There you go. You also don't know what grade. And just I think coming from a background of principals and teachers, so I think the nature of helping others, it's always, it comes from there. Because my mom is a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher, other grandmother is a principal, So I think that's where the principalities of my actions, or maybe my upbringings, I think that I would say that's where they come from.
I guess you reflect a lot about concepts, and just maybe your passion on culture generally.
Well, my reflection, not just on culture, but my reflections are, I think, how do we better ourselves as black people, number one, because I always say us as black people we're in trouble because, a lot of the things that we get or we receive are either fourth-hand information, and I say that, for instance, like if you're in business, you're seeing business off the internet or you hear about someone, you don't have an uncle who's like an accountant or an uncle who's a, business person. If you want to be an actor, you see it on TV. You don't have anyone right next to you to, give you those skills. So these are the things I always reflect on. And the things that I do, the idea is how do I then contribute? Hence, not to be in the spotlight is by design, because what must be in the spotlight is the work that I do.
So you got into business, and you had a small shop apparently in your town.
Yeah, I got into business when I was 12, actually.
What?
Yeah, I owned a soccer club, and I owned like a roller skate team, so to speak. And that propelled to around those times when I discovered this hip hop thing. I think the first time I started understanding commerce in bulk or in mass was when I did this mixtape, right? This is in high school. Because before, myself and some friends, we We had started a hip hop magazine when I think it was in Standard 7.
Sure.
Once again, they'll Google what Standard 7 is. And at the time, once again, the magazine was more about all these amazing things were happening around, there was a spot called The Club, there was, Gandhi Square, there was all these amazing things happening with all these amazing individuals. And we thought, what best way to capture those? And we had started something called Ritual Magazine. Not knowing at the time it would be sort of one of the first hip-hop magazine in Joburg. But fast forward to that was because of the graffiti part, painting walls, started getting some corporates, and the little money that I would save up, bought myself some studio equipment, and was able to do a bedroom studio where guys can come in and pay. And since then, those little monies of saving up and doing this mixtape that took me all around the country, had a cool opportunity to do some graffiti work for a brand called Sprite. And that's the money that helped me start the store that you're talking about 20 years ago, 21 years ago. I just finished matric. Yeah.
Wow. So when it comes to business, do you have a role model? I mean, who inspires you the most?
I've never seen myself to be in business.
Okay.
Because I think I found a way to make money without knowing I'm making money.
Wow.
I've never put myself where I sit down and then like, okay, cool, I need to make money. So everything I do just makes money. But I figured sort of why it makes money, because purely it's about the energy you give. This is gonna start sounding wishy-washy, but it's literally about how do you sync yourself, with the universe, because you need to understand the concept and idea of when you give, you get back. Because the weirdest things I've done have brought me a lot of money, and these are weird things like that. If I told you I do this, you'd be like, no, that makes no sense, So a lot of these things that I've done over the years have been literally new, such as whether it was the Back to the City Hip Hop Festival that's been around for 15 years, which was a weird thing at the time, whether it was the South African Hip Hop Awards, whether it was the South African Hip Hop Museum that's in construction now, or any other weird thing that I do. The process is never to sit down to chase profit. It was always, how do you fill the gap? How do you assist? How do you, and I think the universe naturally will gravitate towards giving you that, pushing, that hand.
I think that's profound, because you come across as somebody who follows their passion, and you don't see it as a business because it's your passion.
Sure.
And in the process, you find yourself making money, but you're not after money. You're pursuing your passion.
That's the trick, because, because also you learn how to harness this energy, because a lot of times I've seen, whether it's mates, whether it's other people in business, I've seen the act of chasing money versus the act of doing things that give and how the money comes in, because I've realized that there's more money in abundance when you do that. There's a reason why Bill Gates has become more richer with his foundation than he was when he was the CEO of Microsoft, right? Because if you look what he's doing, his whole thing is, I'm going to help people, right? And he says, I'm going to this African country, I'm going to this whatever place, I'm going to eradicate da-da-da-da, takes his own money, goes in. But there's someone out there that's like, send Bill 500 million. There's another one, send him $1 billion. There's another one, send him this. You know what I mean? And there's few people that I think have figured that science. And once again, it sounds wishy-washy, but I'm living proof of it.
Makes sense to me. I mean, so I would imagine that a person who follows their passion, and if I may use the term, incidentally makes money in the process.
There's no accidents.
I guess by default, when
No default.
what would you call it?
It's the alignment.
Yes.
It's the alignment. It's everything has a, it's universal laws. Everything has a, everything has repercussions. Whatever energy that you put out, you get back. So, like I say, is that the idea is how do you understand that science? How do you harness it? Because I've just never believed in this. Like me doing something, and a 5 million rand check comes, I'm not saying, oh, that's a mistake.
It's alignment.
It's alignment, because when the 5 million comes, you must know what to do with it. Because if it's a mistake, that's when you blow the 5 million, because you don't know where it came from. But when you understand where this money came from and why this money is in your hands, then you understand the purpose of the money. Because once you understand what purpose money serves, I think more you'll always get it if you understand what the purpose of money is.
So a person with your mindset, I would imagine, would define failure different from what most people would call it, because for you, you're still pursuing your passion.
Yeah. Once again, I think things like that, like failure, I've just always felt, I've always said I've never failed in anything.
Okay.
Purely because whatever has failed, I just needed to look at it from a different direction, right? Whether it's the hip hop awards for a long time not getting money and the money coming from my pocket, all it needed me to do was change strategy, right? Or whether it's the festival that cost millions and millions of rands, and for the first few years the money was coming from my pocket, all I had to do was change strategy, right? So I think a lot of times people tend to do something, and when they hit a wall, it's like, that's it. But I think you've never looked at it
from a different angle.
From a different angle. But also it's important to surround yourself with people that can show you the different angles, And I always say is that the people that I surround myself with literally, assist me in, to do some of these impossible things that I do, because, they're the people that will say, nah, look at it this way, So I think it's also very important to see who you surround yourself with. Once again, everyone needs to be aligned.
Yeah. Have you ever lost money trying to pursue your dream and then recovered?
That's like last week.
Yeah.
That's like last week. That's like any other week. That's like this morning. And I lose big monies, like 5 million, 10 million. But it doesn't depress me, because I understand what the path is. I understand what the goal is. I understand what the mission is, because it's on paper, it's designed, right? And like, for instance, with this year's festival, there's a super big risk we're about to take. Like, it's a big risk, and everyone disagrees with it. But I'm like, the universe will fix it.
Yeah.
Because there's a purpose of why I have to do it. You know what I mean? So losing money is part of the process. It's not a bad thing. But what's a bad thing is losing money and then giving up.
Yeah.
And I always say, if you're trying to get to step 100 and you give up on step 60, that means all those 60 steps were pointless.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow. You've got a different mind, I must say.
I think I've got a normal mind.
No.
I swear to you.
Very few people think the way you think. Somebody would think, if I lose 5 million, why should I continue?
I think they do think this way, but I think they're scared to just go with what their mind says. I think a lot of people, it's the same when when we started the festival and started this museum, it was a bit weird because in my mind I thought it was just common sense. Why wouldn't there be a space to preserve culture?
Yeah.
Isn't that like common sense? You know? But somehow no one did it. But when I then did it, and then it's like, oh, but that's weird to me. Like, why would you give me props for something that's common sense? Hip Hop Awards. Why wouldn't have anyone done awards? Isn't that common sense? Because there's guys working, there's guys doing these things. You do a ceremony to celebrate them, right? Hip Hop Festival. Wouldn't you put together all these amazing guys and put them under one stage and make a big stage and make thousands of people come gather to see them? Wouldn't you do that? It sounded like common sense to me.
What would you say to someone who says, hey, you make life look so simple?
But it is simple. I just think we complicate it.
Sure.
We overthink. We've got this, we care a lot about what people say. Because if, sometimes your environment or what surrounds you, it's what holds you down or holds you back, And I think the minute you expand your mind, you're going to start seeing things very differently, Like I say, we've got all these fears, especially the color of our skin also tends to work against us a lot of times. But I think it's important for, people such as myself and, alike to do these things to give confidence to a generation, that's going to come after us. Because I always say is that without confidence, it's impossible to achieve anything. Because, I do the weirdest things. I'll take some of my friends and I'll be like, hey man, I'm going for a house viewing. And then they're like, oh, okay. And then we get there, the house is like 120 million. And then they're like, oh, and they're scared now. And I'm like, oh, guys, it's just a house. We're not here to buy it. We just want to view,
Yeah.
But that's the confidence. If you want to, whatever it is, if you want to be a CEO of, I don't know, whatever company, Old Mutual, send an email to the CEO and say, hey, man, I'd like to visit for a day and just, find a way to get yourself in that office so you can understand, like, oh, so that's how it feels to be here, That's that boosts, that I think will assist you. So confidence is key.
Tell me about the beginning stages of the festival, how you conceptualize it. What was in your mind and your vision around that?
At the time is when I had the store, so I think started when I was 20 years. So at the time, I had a radio show on YFM, I had a TV show, I had a club, I think. I had, what else was I doing around that time? The store was obviously the big thing. But to me, at the time, it was literally common sense because the store had become very popular at the time. It stored like exclusive sneakers, it stored like local brands and local artists, and an art gallery. It was selling vinyl, so DJs were all coming there. It had a recording studio. And at the time, a friend of mine called Dominique Soma was into eventing, and I approached, was like, look, I want to do this thing in this manner, in this way. Imagine we close the road, people are spraying under the pillars of M1 highway, by the way. That's the busiest. That's the busiest road in the whole country. We can spray those pillars. It's in Newtown. It's a cultural hub. Once again, it sounded very weird, but to me it makes sense. I had a little bit of money to say, let's do it. Let's pull resources. And fast forward, I realized that the sustainability of it comes from scaling. So if you scale it, that means more people come. If more people come, that means you can attract brands and government will take you serious. And if you've got government by your side and you've got corporate by your side, it means you could have a better stage, better sound, better cameras, better everything. And if all those things are aligned, it means the talent that's on stage, you giving them a platform that they had never had before, meaning their potential becomes greater. You know, hence a lot of big artists came from that platform. Hence now, you know, my inbox is sitting at like 600 emails because everyone recognizes that if I get on that stage, my life will change. You know, once again, that is the responsibility of money. So you're realizing all that it was nothing to do with money. It was about how do you get it, and just automatically, because of all those alignments and the responsibility of what the purpose of what this thing is about, the money will then come.
So how would you define your offer? What do you offer brands who sponsor the festival, and what do you offer to people who come there?
Insights. I offer them insights. I offer them reach, and it's built in such a way that we don't have to go knocking, because we knocked for 8 years. We've knocked, but now we've put it at such a scale and at such an offering that the knocking comes to us. And when that happens, it means they know why they want to come in there. They're looking for the numbers. They're looking for relevancy. They're looking to attach themselves to this culture called hip hop, you know. And that is why we've never tried to deviate from, you know, let's put R&B, let's put Amapiano, let's put pop. You know, we've never deviated because we literally work for the culture, because we're here to improve the lives within our culture.
Do you consider yourself a visionary?
No, just a normal guy from Deep Soweto.
Sure.
Sure.
And then you started a live streaming business.
Well, that was interesting. Once again, I didn't start a live streaming business. I was bored.
Okay.
So.
And this was during COVID, right?
Yeah. So COVID hit, and what we then do is, technically speaking, we should have been down and out, technically speaking, because at the time we had just announced our partnership. So Hennessy had just bought the naming rights to the festival. It's called Hennessy Back to the City. It was a super big deal because Hennessy has never done that in the whole wide world. This is the first time they do this in this little country called South Africa, you know. You need to think about that one, like the importance of a brand like that. I mean, the whole president of Hennessy Global came down here for this thing. So when COVID then happened, once again, I already had the insights of COVID. So, and started telling everybody, and everyone thought I was crazy. I said, look, don't use any money, save up. There's a storm coming, and some people listened to me, some people didn't listen to me, right? Because I knew there was COVID, I knew what was going to happen. You ask, how did I know? Because I work a lot with the Chinese companies, right? So a lot of my suppliers, or my makers of things, are Chinese. So in China, those companies had already gotten letters in November from the government to say the country's going to get shut down. So they need to push out all their orders. So I already knew that's what's happening in China, right? And it's a serious thing. So cool. Then it happens. And everyone was like, it's 28 days. Like, it's not going to be 28 days. It was not 28 days with those people. There's no way. Because remember, there's 1.2 billion, 1.3 billion of those people. So I think the first month, just like everyone else, it was about, relaxing, catching up with whoever you need to catch up with, but it got boring because I like I said, I'm curious. So sitting around and watching Netflix and watching TV doesn't really work well for me. Then I started a challenge on Facebook. And I said, whoever can get more diplomas or degrees than me during this time is going to get 10,000 Rand. So I put up like Coursera, Udemy, my loggings. I said, here's a challenge, right? Everyone was excited about the challenge, but we all know during COVID, no one was trying to be studying. So I was like, oh, let me learn a new skill, just for the hell of it. Because we are doing this, we had like a little PlayStation group with some of the hip hop guys, And it's like, oh, it'd be so cool for people to watch our stream. So let me learn how to stream. And then I learned how to stream. It took me 256 hours to learn streaming.
What?
But I did it, consciously did it in front of everybody. So I did it, so I would give everyone an update. I'm now on 10 hours. I've learned this. I'm now on what, I've learned this. I've done this. I'm sitting here now. This is what's happening. Until my first test. My first test obviously bugged out. I think we got hacked by some Russian guy. It had like 85,000 people viewing, which was the festival on the 27th of April, because obviously we're all sitting at home. But I didn't give in, right? It was bad, like very bad, right? Everyone laughed at me. Everyone like made fun of me. I think I trended the day after. It was a big joke. I just laughed as well. I'm like, okay, on to the next. And then started perfecting it little by little. And then I thought to myself, hey, a friend of mine, Ken Zero, is sitting at home. Some of our famous friends in America are sitting at home. Why don't we create like an online TV show? Because I've learned the skill that I don't think a lot of people can do. So I get Ken Zero to be the host. We start calling famous people in America because, a famous person will put you into the next famous person. And people started watching the show. And I got an inbox from one of the brands who were like, hey, our boss is looking for something like that. What company are you using? Right? You realize I did not chase money anywhere there.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, my company is doing it. They were like, oh, okay, can you send us a quotation? Right? And I was like, I asked around some of the companies, how much does a streaming like that cost? Like, everyone was telling me 30,000, 35,000. No, it's okay. I don't want 35,000 Rand. I'd rather sit and do free things for my friends. And then that brand was like, listen, we don't have much of a budget, but we can give you 150,000 for 1 hour. I made over 3.5 million Rand from streaming. I was doing 90% of the streaming in this country.
Wow.
With a skill set I learned from sitting by my table during COVID. And I did that showing everybody how I did it. So once again, it was not a thing of I'm doing something in the corners of my house. It was public. It was like, and people saw all these clients that I was doing, government, corporates. Because remember, at the time, you couldn't go to anyone's house. So I figured how to stream while you're sitting at home and someone else is sitting at home. And so that's why I said it was not a business. I was just streaming, and then people offered me a lot of money. And then I just did the streams for them.
Wow. So you're an avid traveler. I mean, you travel to the US, you go to China, and...
Yeah, I travel a lot. Because I saw the trick of traveling once again. I always say this to every young person I see. I said, if black people discovered China, their lives will change. Like Chinese, that country is our only way out of poverty. And I'll tell you why. Because anything you can think of in your head, they'll make it for you. And I've always said, why can you not go there, do this thing, get the skill, come back home and teach us, and then let's do it. So if you've learned how to make a sneaker in China, come back here, open a little factory, hire us to learn. If you've learned how to make a camera, come here, show us how to make a camera. We can all make cameras. You know what I mean? Because that's what they have. They've got the skill set and the knowledge, and they're not stingy with them. You know? So these are things I've seen in my travel. When you go to the States, you get to understand and see, oh, okay, this is how they think here. Okay, this is how they behave here, you know? And you come back home and you tell the homies, like, yo, you know, this is what's happening out there. But once again, you can't do those things if you don't have confidence.
Wow. You know, I was about to ask if you've ever done a masterclass, but then on second thought, I realized the kind of stuff that you do transparently, so I mean, it's bigger than a masterclass.
I try to be transparent because I show everybody that there's nothing special about me. I'm just doing it, and if I can do it, so can you. Literally, there is nothing special about what I do and who I am. The only difference is that I don't overthink it, I just do it. And I try to show everybody because everyone is always asking these things. And like, for instance, look at the Hip Hop Museum. Once the museum is open, you will laugh one day when you see it, but everybody's gonna have a museum. So the Kwaito guys are gonna have a museum, the jazz people are gonna have a museum, SABC's gonna make a museum, the soccer people gonna make a museum, everybody's gonna make a museum. But you know why? Because the Hip Hop Museum would have given them the confidence to say, if these hip hop people can do a museum, why can we not? You know what I mean? And that's my point of doing things transparently so.
Because now people can see that actually this is doable.
It's doable. Look at awards. Since we did Hip Hop Awards, how many awards are there now? Kwaito Awards, Amapiano Awards, and Gospel Awards, and you name it, awards, you know, because when someone sees it, the attitude is like, if those kids did that, why can we not, you know? Because all these things, I did them in my teens, you know?
You are such an inspiration, then.
Thank you for those kind words, my good sir.
I shake my head because you hardly talk to people who think like that.
Like I said, I think they're there. I think they're there. There's a lot of amazing people doing amazing things, but I think you don't get to hear about some of their work. You don't get to see them, and I'm always hoping that one day, you know, there'll be, you know, platforms more such as these where you literally find, you know, young people doing next level things, you know. Because I think we need to stop looking for inspiration in America and start finding inspiration within ourselves.
So, I mean, with the levels of poverty we have, not only in South Africa, but even in the entire continent of Africa, what sort of mindset or thinking that you think perhaps black people in particular, who are mostly poor people, in the context of what's happening in the continent with poverty and inequality and all that, what sort of thinking do you think we need to adopt? I mean, you.
Yeah. I think first, we need to, I think you need to ask yourself, what is poverty?
Yeah.
Like, what is that? Let's start there. What's poverty? Is that like I can't find food? I can't find a job? Is that what poverty is? Like, what's your definition of poverty?
Well, I think in the simplest, perhaps form, it's just lack. You know, lack. But I know some people would argue and say it's not lack of money, but lack of ideas and thinking.
There we go. Right, that's what I was looking at. Because to me, poverty is not I didn't eat, I can't find a job. Right? Because you see a lot of able-bodied people with a handout, right? Everybody's out here for a handout. because no one is thinking, right? So I'm always saying it starts first with that. You need to sit and look at yourself in the mirror and find yourself, because a lot of us have lost ourselves. Find yourself, and once you find yourself, you will regain your confidence. And once you have that, you will see the world differently, because there are so many things that where opportunities are in abundance, but you can't see them. I always make an example to guys, you know, like someone will bump into me on the streets, and then the guy will be like, can I get a picture with you? And I'm like, no, I don't do that stuff. Like, why would you want to take a picture with me? That makes no sense. What do you do? I do da-da-da-da-da. Oh, okay. Can you do this? Yeah, okay. Okay, email me. I've just changed his mind. He came to ask for a picture. I'm like, nah, dude. You know, what's the hustle? You know, what do you do? You know, who do you know that I would need to know? Sometimes this guy's uncle could be the brand manager of Old Mutual that I've been trying to email. You know what I mean? But I'm moving that way because I've managed to change my mindset. So I think it starts with that, to say, you see on Facebook some amazing stories of someone making charcoal out of something, someone making furniture out of tires, someone making this out of, you know what I mean? And that's a person that has confidence, that has changed, you know? The other day I saw someone who was making these very weird ottomans. And these things are like by Google offices, they are at, you know, Apple, the person is just from South Africa, right? Because the international market recognizes what they're doing. You know what I mean? Because also, we need to also remember that we're a global community. You know, you're not selling to 60 million people. You're selling to billions and billions of people. You're selling to the world. How do you create conversation with a company in Sweden? How do you sell your pictures to Getty Images? How do you do? Why? Because in 2022, the technology allows you to travel to any part of the world while you're sitting at your house. Like I've just said, we were interviewing all these big artists that are impossible to get, like impossible. But I was doing it in my dining room. You know? So I think technology is it's also affording us opportunity, but I always say to artists or young business guys, I always say, you're on Instagram, but you're following slave queens on Instagram. You know, you say you're an artist, but I don't see you following these. When you look at the feed is all wrong. And if your feed is wrong, it means you've just fed your mind wrong things. But if you feed your mind things that will boost what you're about, then you'll go further, you know? So it's in all these little ideas. And all I can hope to do is keep spreading them.
Yeah. If there's one thing that you could say to encourage or advise, not even South Africa, let me say Africans in the whole continent, in order to change the narrative about poverty and inequality and all these challenges that we see, where people are trapped and say, but we can't do anything. I mean, you've proven you come from humble beginnings. I mean, you look at where you are now and the way you approach life. What would you say to Africans?
I think I'd say to Africans that the African Renaissance is now. And if you don't know what that means, go Google. The African Renaissance is now. If you don't take all these opportunities, if you don't educate yourself, if you don't position yourself in a position to win, then this time is going to pass you, because everybody is taking from Africa. Yes, it's been happening over time, but right now it's at its height, because fashion is coming out of here, music is coming out of here, I mean, the other day I was in New York, and I went to six, 7 clubs in Brooklyn. These clubs are only playing Amapiano, only, right? In Brooklyn. In LA, I meet these 2 ladies. I'm a DJ. I'm like, oh, what do you play? It's like, no, we are Amapiano DJs in LA.
Yeah.
And I'm there confused as hell.
Sure.
Like, you are what? Like, yeah, no, we only play Amapiano. They can't even say it
They can't
right.
even pronounce it well.
Yeah. But these people are headliners, right? They're headliners. You know, you look at, I mean, Beyonce did that, what is it, that big concert with something, we are African or something like that. There's a reason she did that. Because she saw the value in that association, right? So I would say the African Renaissance is here, and we should be the ones pushing it. We should be the ones benefiting from it. But if we don't align ourselves, if we don't educate ourselves, if we don't have the necessary skills to be able to take those opportunities, then once again, you know, other nations are going to come and take. You know what I mean? And it's beautiful. Look around you. Look at what the sneaker guys are doing. You know, Badu, Drip, and, you know, all these guys, you know, they gave confidence to other guys to start their own brands because, you know, I was saying to someone, I try to start a sneaker with the store called, you know, Ritual Sneaker. I did a pair. Was there. This is 19 years ago, right? But the market was not there yet, right? And when I see what's happening now, I'm like, that's it. This is it. You know, clothing label. You see what guys like Bhutan were doing. I'ma keeps back. You know, you see what some of these rich Manyike guys are doing. You see what Black Coffee is doing. There's a lot of them, and the only thing we can do now is rally behind them, get the necessary skills, and also go and take over the world, because there's no reason why we can't.
Wow.
And doing the handout to government also doesn't work. You know, it just doesn't. It's because when the powers that be see you running, they're gonna want to run with you. But when you're sitting and you're doing that, they're gonna move right along. You know, whether it's brands, whether it's some of these corporates, whether it's the government. But if they see you running, when they see that you've created value by yourself, they all want to be attached to your value. So that's what you need to create. Create your own value and see the wonders of the world.
Osmic, thank you so much.
It's all my pleasure, my big boss.
It's really a pleasure to chat to you, and quite an inspiration, honestly. And hope we'll chat again soon.
Oh, that I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
Peace and love.
Sure.
Cool.